Welcome to the Attention Now podcast. Today we have David Bull Gurfein. He's a Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel veteran, entrepreneur, and CEO of United American Patriots. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you, Dave. Honored to have you as well. Hey, Dave, I want to start off with the Marine Corps. When did you decide to join the Marine Corps?
Yeah, I probably decided when I was about 8 years old. My
Okay.
father was a Marine vet from World War II, landed on Okinawa, and he's always been my hero, and he inspired me. So early on, that was sort of my focus of effort.
Awesome. Awesome. Good deal. Now, you were enlisted, right, at first, but became an officer, obviously. At what time frame did you wind up transitioning? Was it while you were in, or did you get out and then go to school and come back in?
Yeah, so I cut out of high school when I was 17, enlisted in the Marine Corps. My father had other ideas, although he was proud of me being a Marine. His consent would only be if I went into the Marine Corps Reserves. I went into Marine Corps Reserves, ended up getting picked up for the platoon leaders class. And so I enlisted in 82. It was probably about 83, 84. I was picked up for platoon leaders class, was commissioned as an officer in 87.
Oh, wow. Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you. In what years did you actually serve then? 80, 82 you went in?
Yeah, so 82 through 2007. I had broken time in 98 to 2000, where I got out because peace was breaking out all over the world around 98. And I ended up going to business school, got my MBA, started working Wall Street for a bit, and doing some other entrepreneurial work. And then we were attacked on 9/11. And I just returned to active duty and served Afghanistan, Iraq, and did some other tours around DC on Capitol Hill and also up in Bethesda, deal with some of our wounded warriors.
That's awesome. Good to hear. Since you did both boot camp and OCS, what was the biggest difference, do you think?
So, it's definitely a screening and evaluating process at officer candidate school versus boot camp. They've got to push through numbers.
Right.
I love boot camp because I just love the challenge of it. And, here I was a young man, and this was really a first test of my mettle. And, I embraced the challenges there. Officer candidate school was a much more thinking game, although it still has the physical aspects. But, unlike where they put you down in the rack in boot camp, hey, you stay up as late as you need to at officer candidate school to get things ready for the next day. And I went down to officer candidate school with the intent to be the honor graduate. So I had trained my butt off, prepped as best I could, saw the commandant's trophy standing there the first day, and some sergeant instructor comes out. He goes, "What the hell are you looking at there, candidate?" And I said, "I'm looking at my statue." And he goes, "Yeah, is your name on it?" I said, "Not yet." He goes, "Then get the hell out of here." Very well. And I pushed forward, and I was the honor graduate out of officer candidate school.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's more of a big picture in OCS versus just get it done and keep moving forward like boot camp, right?
In some regards, because the Marine Corps really needs thinking leaders,
Right.
and boot camp I think is getting to that point, and they're expanding that because they recognize that you've got the 3-block war, and you've got these corporals that are making strategic decisions there on the battlefield. So they really have to be elevated, and they have to be thinkers. And more importantly is that, you're going in there boot camp as a private or a recruit or a maggot. And what ends up happening is, you're learning leadership traits, leadership principles, and you're thinking, when the hell am I going to lead anything? Well, the reality is that you might be in combat, and all of a sudden you're a PFC, and now you're a fire team leader. Heck, you could end up being a squad leader, and the Marine Corps doesn't have time to say, "Oh, let's stop the war, bring you back, train you, and put you out." You've got to take the lead right there. So I think the Marine Corps does it better than anybody by developing junior leaders who can step up, who have the ability, they have the intellect, they have the drive, they have the will. And I'm always inspired by my junior Marines who always, regardless of where I was in my career, they gave me tremendous advice every single day.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's one thing I loved about the Marine Corps is like, hey, they instill in us like you're the best. You could you could accomplish anything you want and keep moving forward, which is I love. So thank you for that. You've had a great career in the Marine Corps. Thank you for the service, and you did an outstanding job. What mission was the most impactful for you? Was it in your career?
So, it's interesting. I just recently was asked to write some after action reports from my time in Iraq. And I was really fortunate to be lined up under some great leaders who, under General Conway, basically took the leash off me and said, "Hey, we've got to accomplish these things." And it was basically Message to Garcia, which is one of the Marine Corps basic books on mission oriented statements, and that just says, "Hey, make this happen." And not only are you not supposed to sit here and ask a million questions and doubt it, because a lot of times your leaders don't even know how to accomplish this, and you've got to think and you've got to work with people. And so my time there, I dealt with I led reconnaissance Marines on the initial clearing of the borders, opening everything up. Took Marines into Safwan. We were engaged in a lot of interesting missions. Even went into Qasr early on to help identify where the enemy was held up. And ironically, ran into one of my fellow company commanders who he had thought I left active duty. And in the middle of the fight, he's like, "Bull, what the hell are you doing here? I thought you got out and this and that." And I'm like, "Hey, Nick, listen to me. The enemy's over here." "No, I understand that, but didn't you go to Wall Street?" So then the radio operator is like, "Hey, gentlemen, I appreciate this F fest, but like we're in the middle of a freaking fight. Can we finish the war first?" So
we got rounds coming in. It's focus, right?
Exactly. So no, I love my time in the Marine Corps, and I was fortunate to again be lined up under great leaders, and also serve with some amazing Marines who challenged me every day, and they figured out the solutions every single day.
Awesome. Speaking of challenges, what was the biggest challenge you had in the Marine Corps?
Getting lined up against or under leaders that didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I think that, we see this time and again, and I've had challenges where I've confronted senior leaders where, a Marine will make a mistake and all of a sudden they want to hang this Marine. And, Marine Corps FMFM1 warfighter talks about how you should never punish a Marine for making a mistake. Now, this is short of integrity violations, lying, cheating, stealing, and all the rest. But short of that if a Marine makes a mistake, you should counsel him, put him on the right path, but you don't destroy the Marine for a mistake. That's where you hinder initiative. That's where you hinder the ability for individuals to grow. And so I've seen this a few times, and I think that that's challenging. And we've also seen, look at the senior leadership. We ended World War II in under 4 years. And now we just finished a loss in Afghanistan after 20. I mean, it's unheard of. And yet we never held these generals accountable. Now, there are great generals in the Marine Corps who I love, but there are those they've become politicized. Yes. And they're unwilling to speak truth to power. And this is where, we had senior generals talking about ISIS couldn't be destroyed in 5 years. But the tactical commanders, when they were asked by the president, how long would it take? They said 5 weeks. And the commander-in-chief said, make it happen. And they did. And this is where we have to get back to listening to the warriors, thinking like warriors, and allow the politicians and the civilians to do what they do best and debate it, because that's their job, is to debate. We shouldn't just have one focus, but the warriors need to focus on war fighting.
Yeah, I mean, the warriors, the generals, they're the subject matter experts, right? So why would you listen to someone that has no experience? We were talking a little bit before you got online about doctors and surgery. It's like, you're not going to go to someone that's never done any surgery to get your body worked on. So I think it's the same.
I think the difference, though, is that we presume competency and warfighting expertise because of rank. And that's not necessarily accurate. A surgeon, they're focused on surgery. Our generals are focused on political issues that are way outside the scope of warfighting. And that's the challenge, that if we're not elevating our warfighters, then we're diminishing the warfighting capability.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's some generals that have never been in battle, right?
But that doesn't make them bad generals, as long as they're focused on warfighting.
Though, right? Yeah.
Yep. And I think, for the most part, all the Marine Corps generals, they've served in combat and they've been noted for their valor. So for the Marine Corps, for the most part, we elevate our warfighters.
Right. But like you mentioned earlier, the political stuff gets in the way, right? So it's like, hey,
Certainly.
if I want to get another star, or if I whatever the case is, I got to play the game. So that
Go
makes
along
sense.
to get along.
Right, exactly. Unfortunately. What was the most valuable lesson you learned in the Marine Corps?
Was the the camaraderie, the esprit de corps, the understanding that just because somebody perceives something as impossible doesn't mean it is, to push ahead against all odds, to recognize that persistence is the key to success in life. There are plenty of brilliant people out there. There are plenty of people who are stronger, smarter, better, but persistence is what pays off. If you're willing to make something happen and you're dedicated towards that and you have the will and the discipline to make it happen, you'll make it happen, period.
That's true. Awesome. Did you face any challenges with PTSD and TBI after the Marine Corps, and how did you overcome them?
Well, listen, I'm sure my wife will tell you I'm crazy, but the reality is I was very fortunate in that I don't have any PTSD that I know of. Don't have any TBI. I would say that it's interesting that, and I'll talk for the war fighters, you could have two warriors going into combat and be separated by, maybe a few blocks. And one warrior will not have any PTSD. Another warrior will see atrocities that will impact them for their life. And so PTSD is real. It's worth dealing with and addressing and talking to other warriors, but even other warriors won't always get it. So there are professionals out there that can certainly help. And so we, if you think about it, if a police officer shoots someone, they get time off, they get counseling, this and that. If a Marine shoots someone, hey,
Keep going.
carry on.
Right.
And so, we've all, well, I won't say we've all, but there have been what's referred to as collateral damage. Well, collateral damage tends to be civilians being injured in combat, and that's unfortunately a necessary evil of war. And anybody who's had to see something like that, they're going to be impacted. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I heard somebody recently saying that a lot of people that are struggling, it's for them to find a mission. Obviously, the counseling helps, but to find another mission to keep them moving and staying busy, like you were talking earlier, right? To succeed. So I think if you get around something that you love and that keeps you busy, I think it helps a lot as well.
I think, listen, I've dealt with depression for other issues and dealing with custody battles and other things, and I will tell you the best way to get out of that is to serve others.
Exactly.
It's the biggest thing. And I like to consider myself a servant leader. I try to go out and help other people. And that's where, one of the phrases I've used often is that fear is the most selfish emotion as a leader that you can experience in combat. Because if you have fear, that means all you're focused on is yourself. You're like, oh my God, I could get hurt and this, that if you're doing that, you're not focusing on your combat tasks. You're not focusing on your 100, 300, or even your other 3 Marines. Right. That's where your focus of effort has to be. If you're paralyzed by fear, you're putting everybody's life in jeopardy. And so how do you get out of that? Get out of your own head. Might you get injured? Absolutely. Might you die? Of course. However, you have a responsibility as a leader to help others succeed. And that's the most important thing. Get out of your head, help others, go to a freaking food kitchen or a food bank and see people who have lives that are really, really challenging. And all of a sudden it puts things in perspective. Right. And what we need to do is show gratitude and realize how fortunate we are to wake up every single day with whatever challenges we have, face them head on, and do the best we can.
Love it. Love it. That's awesome. Great advice. Thank you. How did you develop your mindset for succeeding? Was that sports, family, Marine Corps?
I'd say all of the above.
Okay.
It's been cumulative that, my coaches in sports were definitely instrumental in shaping me. And this is one of the things where, my high school, we had an undefeated football team. I was a quarterback. they've taken football out of the high school because they feel it's too dangerous. And we're losing a lot of the elements that bond us, that challenge us, and make us work through certain aspects of our life. And so that I had two amazing parents. My mother served as a nurse during World War II. My father was a Marine during World War II. And they had, these perspectives that nothing bad happens to you in life. Bad things happen, but you have to learn from them, and that God's giving you these challenges to make you stronger. And I had a situation where, I couldn't believe what happened to me. And I was telling my mother and this and the other thing. And my mother, who's from England, she said, "Oh, what a wonderful life's experience." It's like, what? No, Mom, did you listen to what I just said? Goes, yes, but just think of how it will give you empathy for others, and it will help you serve others in a more understanding manner. And of course, I was like, that's ridiculous. Later on, it played out as I became the CEO of United American Patriots. So that combined with Marine Corps training, I've just been blessed to be lined up with, you don't get to pick your parents. I was fortunate. I was blessed with two amazing parents and great leaders in the Marine Corps. And even the leaders, a lot of them were junior in rank to me, but they led me through certain situations that it was phenomenal.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think if you have that support at home, that's huge, right? It gives you a lot of belief. You get, it's like you have that mentality that you can succeed. And I love that you've had that since you've been young, right? You want to be a winner. You want to you want to do your best. You wanted to be the honor graduate. So I think if you have that mindset as well, that propels you. So that's awesome. Thank you. Can you share a little bit about what you're doing as an entrepreneur?
So I've been involved helping businesses think through a lot of operational components and try to align organizations and give them, mission statements. And a commander's intent is a huge thing that we use in the Marine Corps. Like, what's the end state? What are we working towards? And trying to get organizations structured and focused on that. And I advise companies all the time. So when I got out, I was involved in a couple of different entrepreneurial ventures, some successful, some not. But the principles remain the same. And the failures just end up elevating you to learn from those mistakes and to continue to push on and take them into the next venture.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Next one is we want to talk about UAP. I see a Major Capers behind you. So can you elaborate a little bit on that, please?
So Major Capers, he's just a phenomenal individual. He's recognized within the MARSOC community, the Marine Corps Special Operations Forces, the Raiders, as sort of their father. He was out there conducting combat missions in Vietnam. He enlisted in the Marines. And he ended up getting a battlefield commission, which there in and of itself speaks to what an amazing leader he is. And then after Vietnam, many people had their commissions taken away, but he retained his rank as an officer and his own Marines. Unfortunately, they've all passed away, but I got an opportunity to speak to him. And when I'm talking to him about his Medal of Honor, they're like, he deserves 2 or 3. But this individual was phenomenal. He was heroic. He was a great leader. And he's in a situation right now where, as his health is beginning to fail, he's 87 years old, that there was a question, why didn't he receive the Medal of Honor? And apparently a general recognized that his heroism was deserving of a Medal of Honor, met with him in the hospital and was going to push it through. And then unfortunately, this general actually died in a helicopter crash. So he never ended up getting the Medal of Honor. He ended up receiving the Bronze Star with V. And, again, a worthy award for valor, but not of where it should have been at the Medal of Honor. And so this was picked up by General Williams in the Marine Corps, and he started asking the questions, doing the research, and said, this is not right. And he pushed for him to get Medal of Honor. It was reviewed at an awards board, and it was elevated, but only to the Silver Star, which was questioned, like, why only the Silver Star? Why not even the Navy Cross or the Medal of Honor? And we never had any real answers. And a part of it is the notes from that meeting were destroyed. Oh, and that's actually not supposed to happen.
Right.
Why it happened, we don't know, but we don't have the answers. But he was awarded the Silver Star. So we continue to push to fight to get him the Medal of Honor. And we've been working with great members of Congress who actually even put it into the National Defense Authorization Act. It was approved by the House of Representatives, but it was shot down at the Senate. We're not sure why again. But we continue to push and to make sure that Major Capers gets the award that he deserves. And what's interesting is, and not why he should get the award, but he would be the first African-American officer of Marines to receive the Medal of Honor.
Oh, wow.
Which
Okay.
it seems shocking even to say that, yet there, and of course the question was always like, well, was racism involved? And when you talk to Major Capers, he'll say, well, there's systemic racism and this, and he says, no, there's not. He goes, there are racists, there are individuals. And unfortunately, it may only take one to shoot down an award because all awards are subjective, regardless of the actions. And his bottom line is that, I don't believe that. The Marine Corps is the greatest organization in the world. America is the greatest place in the world. And so he fights, and I fight purely on the merits of his award. And yet there are others who are like, well, let's just get him the award because he's black. And so that's not the right thing. But if people want to get him the award to fight for that, great. That's not why he deserves it. He deserves it because he's a warrior and a hero.
That's awesome. How can our audience help with what you're doing with UAP or with Major Capers?
Thank you. So people who are interested in signing a petition or donating to support so we can produce publications and other material to get it out to Congress, that would be amazing. As a matter of fact, you can go to uap.org. That's our nonprofit organization. I don't get a dime out of that organization. None of my staff's being paid. We're all strictly fighting for Major Capers to get the award, and also for other Marines who have been wrongfully accused and unjustly incarcerated from these wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. But go to uap.org. You can click on the Major Capers link. You can learn more about them. There's a video there. There's also, pull this up. There's even a book that Major Capers wrote, and it's Faith Through the Storm, Memoirs of Major James Capers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Phenomenal life. I mean, here's an individual, like literally his family came over as slaves. He was the son of a sharecropper. And what's interesting is when he tells his stories, to hear where he came from to where he is now, and how his love for America is untarnished. Wow. It's just phenomenal.
Wow. Yeah, we'll definitely go on there and sign a petition and see if we get donate as well. Dave, thank you. Speaking of Congress, I saw that you ran for Congress in the past. What do you think of the new administration coming in? We're seeing a lot more veterans, becoming part of the government, which is awesome.
Yeah. So right now we're in a transformational stage in our country's history. And I'm very enthusiastic about what's going on. I believe that the president and his administration are going to right the ship, if you will. I think we've lost our way in many different aspects, and bringing in people who are focused on really those things that our government should be focused on: national defense, economic growth, and serving and protecting those who are in need. But there's so much bloat. And this is where, you've got the Department of Government Efficiency that's going to be led by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. Like, they're going to come in there and just really do a major overhaul and look at all the waste, fraud, and abuse. I'd love to be a part of that team and really get in there and do what has to be done. But we're going to see some major changes, and I'm excited about what the future will bring.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I was listening to an interview with Elon the other day. It's like, you know what? He actually, when he bought Twitter or X, he let go of a lot of people, right? And he was talking a little bit about there's so much waste in the government right now. There's so many agencies that people probably don't even know what some of these agencies are doing. So I'm looking forward to that change, and see how, and hopefully with that new administration, it might help out with Major Capers as well, right?
We hope so. And we're hoping that we're going to have a lot of cases reviewed, including Major Capers, and also some of our supposed war criminals, and look at how their rights were violated. And we trust that all of these things are going to be cleared up.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dave. How much does faith contribute to your success?
I would say it probably contributed more than I even realized. And, it's interesting because my father was Jewish, my mother was Protestant. I always aligned with my father as far as identity as being Jewish, yet was always brought up with the Judeo-Christian beliefs. And what was interesting is during the first Gulf War, when we were lined up, we were with 1st Battalion, 6th Marines. We were going to be the lead element going into Kuwait. It was the first major war that the United States had fought, first major war against Muslims and Arabs. And the Marine Corps, out of concern for the Jews in the unit, which Jews, despite what's perceived, are actually are overrepresented for the population in the United States. And what's interesting is they came around and said, hey, everybody's got Jewish on your dog tags. Go ahead and take them off. And we're going to give you dog tags that say no preference or have something else on there.
Oh, wow.
And a few of the Jews in the Marine Corps in our unit came and talked to me and said, hey, sir, what should we do? I said, look, that's a personal decision. However, I'll just say that you can't have pride in being associated with something and then all of a sudden show fear.
Right,
Either you
exactly.
believe or you don't believe. And as we looked out, they had these burning oil wells and all the rest in Kuwait. And I said, listen, think back to the biblical story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, where he refused to give up his faith or they refused to give up their faith and were thrown into a burning furnace. And so when you're looking at these flame trenches that we're going to be breaching, and we're going against a Babylonian king or an Iraqi dictator, do you not think your faith is being challenged? Not
Absolutely.
one Marine that I know changed their dog tags.
That's awesome. That was great advice. I love that. What words of wisdom would you offer the audience about achieving success? So let's say you're 20 in this generation, not back when you were. What kind of a success, or what would be your path?
Find out what you're passionate about and locate, close with, and destroy. Do not quit. If you're passionate about it and it's going to do some good, make it happen, whatever that is. And too many people will take counsel of their fears, or they'll listen to people who have never been successful, or will be jealous of somebody who perceives they can be successful. And they'll say, oh, that'll never happen. You'll never do that. You're not good enough at that. Well, get good enough at that and make it happen. And I think back to one of my very close friends who I played football with, Quinn Early. He played football, wasn't a great football player, didn't have the hands, but he had a lot of raw talent. And I asked him, he went on to play college football at Iowa, then played professional football on a few teams, was very successful. He actually went on, became Will Smith's stunt double. He's now written a movie that's going to be produced by Paramount. I mean, just a phenomenal human being. And every step of the way, people are like, oh, you can't do that. And I asked him, I said, who is the biggest motivator for you to become a professional football player? Because we had great coaches. His mother was phenomenal. And he said, Brett Brown. I said, Brett Brown? I said, who that? Brett Brown?
Right.
And he goes, yeah, because Brett Brown every single day was like, you'll never play professional football. You'll never make it.
Oh,
and so it's interesting. Let those critics drive you. Let them you go out and prove them wrong. Whatever your motivation is, if that's your passion, make it happen.
Love it. Love it. That's awesome. What would you like our listen? Or actually, you know what? You already mentioned about how people can connect with you on the uap.org, was it? Right?
That's correct.
Any other way they connect with you on social media?
Well, let's see. I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I think we post other stuff in other places. Usually LinkedIn is the place where I connect with most people.
Okay, very good.
So I'd say that's probably the best way to connect with me if people are interested.
Awesome. What would you like people listening to today to remember about you or your work?
Yeah, I don't care if anybody remembers about me, and they probably won't. I would like people to focus on priority right now for us is pushing forward with Major Jim Capers. Pray for our warriors who are still in prison, even though we've released all the Taliban, 150 of which were on on death row for the most heinous crimes you can imagine. And we still have warriors in prison from Afghanistan and Iraq whose rights were violated. You've got Bob Bales, you've got Calvin Gibbs, two individuals. When you look at the media and you look what's written about them in their cases, it's ghastly. But when you actually dive in and you meet these individuals, as I have, I've flown out to Leavenworth, I've met with these individuals, and you actually hear the stories and you hear how their rights were violated. Like they have less rights than some psycho that goes into a school and starts shooting up children. And this is where we have to preserve our warriors' rights. Right, they go out, they voluntarily put their lives on the line to support and defend our rights. We have an obligation to provide the same defense for our defenders.
Right. I totally agree. That's more important than any kind of promotion or political agenda, right? People are the most important, and you need to focus on helping, like you mentioned earlier. So I love that, Dave. Thank you. All right. So we went through it pretty quick, Dave. Thank you for being on today. May God bless you and your family and keep up the fight. Looking forward to getting this out and making sure everyone finds out about major capers and everything else that you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. God bless.
God bless.